Hi, this is Mers Nerds. In this mini episode, Dad and Tyler are talking about their nerd hobbies and how they stay creative, especially during the pandemic. Dad talks about some of his music projects like the Golden Beat and the nerds who inspire him to keep making music. They also talk some more about their favorite new show, WandaVision. They're at episode 4, so if you haven't watched up to then yet, spoiler alert. Welcome back to Mers Nerds.
Oh my god.
All right, we are back for another episode of Mers Nerds. How you doing, Dan?
Mers Nerds. I'm doing great.
I was thinking about you because with the starting of this podcast, and this is one of our pandemic projects. And this is great because even though we've decided that we don't want to focus on capes and lightsabers, which is going to be the new little term I've coined for the Mers Nerds podcast, but your nerd foray is not necessarily that kind of stuff. Yours is more music, right?
It's a little bit beyond Nerd Thunderdome.
Right.
It's true. Yes.
So my question is, like, because we've been focusing so much on capes and lightsabers, and I've been saying that, and I've mentioned a few times that I'm revisiting the MCU in chronological order. What are you doing to keep your nerd fire?
My nerd fire burning. Well, let's see. I mean, I too am also enjoying, as we've talked about, WandaVision. I think we just all read about how the next season of Mandalorian is going to start filming in April.
Right?
Yeah, I think everyone shed a collective tear that it's not coming sooner because, it's another show that I felt really helped light a bit of the fire of this in me anyways, because it's been great. That's been great.
Yeah.
So I don't know, like watching those shows, I've been trying to write as much music as I possibly can when I have time to do so.
Like theme songs for podcasts?
Yeah, like theme songs for podcasts and, that kind of a thing. I've been collaborating with a friend of mine, a few friends of mine. We just kind of throw things back and forth. Someone has an idea, they shoot it over to me, hey, what can you do with this? So, and I'll try and go on.
Is that like your drum beat project?
Yeah, 100%. That's right. Good point.
Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, sure. So I had this project that we started at around the midway point of the beginning of the pandemic, I guess. I don't know if there's parts of the pandemic that you can refer to, but
that's pretty vague too. Like the midway point of the beginning of the pandemic.
Yeah. I guess it was when was it? It was last summer. Sorry, the summer of 2020. Let's say that.
Sure.
And the whole concept was it's called the Golden Beat. And what we did was I made a drum beat on my computer, and I sent it out to a bunch of musicians who, just for something to do, because a lot of people they don't have enough to do necessarily. People aren't working or they can't be working because they're shut down. So let's just do something fun and something that we can all engage in as a group activity. And it's the Golden Beat. Now, we had actually, me and several of these people, we had done this many years previous. So it was 2007, I think this started off. A really good old friend of mine, I haven't seen in a while, but it was his idea, and we did it. I helped to facilitate that as much as possible. We put a CD together. We had a party. And we released it to little fanfare, but it was a fun thing to do.
Sure.
So right, so that thought came back to me at this point in time, and we just did it again. So I think about 30 people asked for a copy of the beat, and I think I only got 7 back.
Right. You totally sent me an invitation, and I was like, I don't know what to do with it. It's funny because I've made a career, and a lot of my career has to do with music.
Yeah.
But I am not a musical creator, if you will. Like if you give me your music and you're like, hey, sing this, I'll be like, I'll do my best. But I remember sitting on it and being like, oh, I don't know. And then finally, I think I just called you up and I was like, I just can't. I don't know what to do. This is not my thing, but thank you so much.
Yeah, that's fair, because I had some other friends of mine who were like, hey, can you send it to me as well? And I know that they were not musically inclined people.
Well, now I feel worse.
But it's all about just inclusion, right?
Sure.
Just like, you know what, totally. If you just want to like bang some pots and pans along to this and that's going to be your submission, please, by all means, do it. Like, just if you're getting those creative juices going, and it's making you feel a little bit better on the inside, and we're all a part of this, then let's just do it. Then just
spread the joy.
Yeah. So that was something that I was doing for a good portion of last year, compiling all that, putting everything together. It's up on, there's a website called Bandcamp, where you can go to and you can check out the songs that were finalized and submitted. Some of them are really good. One of my really good friends, an old friend of mine, his name is Dan McCarthy. He's a professional jazz vibraphonist. And
what's that?
A vibraphone? A vibraphone is it's like a really large, this is doing it a disservice. It's like a really large, xylophone. You know what a xylophone is?
Yep.
When you were a kid, you had those little colorful things?
Mm-hmm.
So like a vibraphone is kind of like that. It's big and metal. You play with mallets, and that's like part of his gig. He does many, many more things than that. I'm so glad to have him as a friend, because he's kind of like an inspirational person. He owned a CrossFit gym for a while, like 10 years. Like, he was the owner. He started it. He's played with like some of the greatest legends in jazz. Like, he's made albums with these people. He's still releasing music to this day, and he I make music, I play music. I'm really not that great, right? But I do it because I love it. And he still sends me stuff. Like, he sent me something this week. It's like, hey, I made this song, can you put something on it? And I was like, oh my god,
Nice.
You're gonna let me do a little something? Okay, I'm gonna do my best. So so that was something I was working on this weekend anyway. So
sweet.
Yeah.
So you are still your nerd flame is still burning then?
Yes, my nerd flame is always, it kind of always is. And I mean, some days, I don't know how you feel about this, but some days, the passion isn't like 100%.
Sure.
And maybe you feel a little down.
Yep.
And that can linger for maybe a few days, but I'm always trying to shake that off the best I can.
Yeah.
And, you get down on yourself, and that can be rough, but you gotta just fight it back and just kind of get back to what you're doing.
That's not even necessarily a result of the pandemic too. Writer's block is a real thing. And during the best of times, I know a lot of writers, myself, I'm working on the same screenplays. I've got a handful of screenplays and I've been working in them all for, way too long. But creativity doesn't just flow out of everybody the same way, who's that writer, the TV writer? Is it Aaron Sorkin or is it Aaron Sorkin or David E. Kelly? I think it's Aaron Sorkin, who he's got it down to I'm a 9-to-5 writer. I go into the office, I write, and at 5 o'clock I finish and I'll pick it up tomorrow. And he's just able to do that. It's amazing, and he's a brilliant writer. He's a genius, but to be able to turn it on and off like that. If I want to sit down and write something, if I have an idea, I need to do my taxes first and clean the dust off of the top of the ceiling fans.
I kind of feel that way sometimes too. It's almost like the level of excitement of the idea that you have, it puts you in this weird corner where you're like, I'm not sure how to deal with this. You get too excited, or you don't want to mess it up or something. I don't know. It's a weird thought process for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. I've talked about this before too. I think I frustrate Tanya, and I've got my other friend Sean, who gets so frustrated with me because I've got all these ideas for stories, and they all need to put, and somewhere in there I've convinced myself that no one's ever going to want to read these or watch these or pay for these, much less, which is ridiculous. But I've got all of these stories, and just sit down and write them down. Just sit down and do it. Like, I'm the idea guy. I need someone like you with this podcast to be like, no, we're doing it. Just sit down and do it. I hate to say it, but if someone's holding my hand and dragging me along, I'm like, well, yeah, I can get that done. Which is something I'm desperately trying to improve upon. Another one of my pandemic projects is to be the better me.
So something I like to add to that, and that's
Yeah.
great. That, you want to make yourself a better me. That's, I mean,
I don't want to be a better you. If I was you, I'd already be better.
Come on now.
Yeah.
Like I think everybody always wants to. I think a lot of people want to make themselves a little bit better than what they are, right? And I know for me, I can totally get where you're coming from on that, because I feel like sometimes it's hard for me to do something or follow through with something all by myself. I really feel like I have a more collaborative spirit, and maybe that's, at least for now, this is working out really well.
Yeah.
But you and me, and it's because we're collaborating on this.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll tell you right now, like, the day before we actually do an episode, I'm like, what are we going to talk about? What's going on? I really didn't make any notes for this episode because I wasn't sure like what we were going to do, and we're just talking. You know what I mean? Like, we're just having a chat, and and it's a nice push and pull with what's going on. So
yeah. And whenever we invite other people in too, it's nice to have just the outside voices who are passionate about something, the way you are with music and I am with capes and lightsabers. And just having another point of view, another perspective, and listening to other people's stories. Like, you're talking about that friend of yours who you haven't seen in a while, but still creates this awesome music. It's great to have this wealth of this pool of people in our lives. I certainly have that, and I call that pool of people Mers Nerds. But it's nice to have stories from people, and you're like, oh my God, you're amazing, you're awesome. And knowing that those people think of you and they're like, you've done some pretty cool stuff too. And it's a nice reminder that, we're all in this together.
Totally right.
Yeah.
And just getting back to another thing you were saying there, another thing about creating that I always try to remind myself is, you a lot of the time I say, Dan, you're doing this because you love it. Don't worry about the idea of having to monetize anything or everything.
Yeah.
I think that takes away a lot of the creative spirit. If that happens along the way, or you're able to work towards that, and still maintain that creative path that you're on, amazing. Like, that's fantastic. Great.
Yeah.
That's totally good for you. And the other thing I want to say to that is, like, I always worry about what people are going to think when I make stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and I'm sure so many creative people feel the same way. I'm like, they have to, you know what I mean? Like, it's just, I'm sure it's documented. I try not to worry about that, but it's so freaking difficult.
Well, like in the acting world, I where you're constant, like, I try not to think of it as being constantly judged, especially in the audition aspect of the acting world, but it's hard not to think of that. And then that just kind of seeps into everything.
Mm-hmm.
You have to get to the point where you're like, well, who gives a crap what other people think?
Maybe that just comes with getting older as well.
That definitely comes with getting older. My bag of F words to give is, it's definitely, there's a lot more room in there because I have a lot less Fs to give.
Nice.
So the important thing that we're getting out of this, Dan, is that your creative outlet is alive and well. And mine is alive and well because every once in a while, Tan, my wife, lets me come down into the, not quite a bat cave yet because it's not decorated as such, but the place where my other TV and video games is.
Got a lot of great artwork I can see.
Yeah. I've got my green screen. Thankfully, this is where I make all my self tapes. So this is a green screen, and I'm gonna switch it up all the time because our pilot episode, just the blue wall, didn't work. So I got the dogs playing poker now. 1 year for Christmas, I gave my brother a bunch of dogs playing poker prints. This is years and years ago. And he had a bar in his new house that was his bachelor pad. And he put the dogs playing poker up. It looked kind of cool.
Yeah.
And his now wife my sister-in-law Lana is, and she's awesome, hysterical. But one of the first things she did when she moved in was she just got rid of that bar and she got rid of the dogs playing poker, and I've never let her forget it. To the point where she found them, and they redid their upstairs. They turned a spare bedroom into an office, and she put the dogs playing poker up. And I went to stay there the summer before last for a family wedding, and she was like, So I can't help but think about her every time we've got dogs playing poker.
So,
Anywho,
can I ask you a quick question?
yep.
Like, I don't really play poker. I don't really understand how to play poker. Maybe like a little bit.
Okay.
Can you tell me which dog is winning the game right now?
I think this guy is he's got, I mean, see if I can see his hand. They're all, oh, you can't see his hand in this one, but I think
He's got a lot of chips.
Yeah.
But that guy in the back looks like he's got a couple of jokers or jacks going on, you know?
Probably jacks, yeah. Anyway, I'm pretty sure it's that guy, but there might be a bluff in there. I think like the famous thing about this one is that he's cheating, or there might be like an ace, but you can't see it in my green screen.
Okay.
Anywho, this is all to say that this is where I come down to play video games and rifle through the MCU movies. Last night I came down. You were watching the latest episode of WandaVision, and
yes.
I was so excited to hear your take on it. We're talking about episode 4 right now, where we are in the timeline, and great episode. I can't wait to talk about it with you. But where I am in the MCU, because I'm going chronological order, I'm at Age of Ultron, where we saw a clip in a post-credit scene of Wanda and her brother, but this is the first movie where she actually has stuff to do, right?
Yes.
And being an MCU fledgling, I guess, when I first saw Age of Ultron, I was more focused on James Spader because I'm a huge James Spader fan. He does the voice of Ultron. And I didn't notice any of the little detail moments between, well, Wanda and Vision especially, but just a lot of the little details, and seeing Wanda's first appearance and knowing now what I know about like the entire MCU and WandaVision, a lot of stuff made a bit more sense. But as I was getting ready to go, I came downstairs, and we have to, whenever I'm setting up for talking with you in the podcast or doing self-tapes, and I made a couple self-tapes during the day yesterday, I have to move furniture around. So I move a chair over and move a table over, and I hadn't put all that stuff back yet. So I came down and the lights were still kind of off, and I had a glass, like a drink in my hand, and I had a piece of pizza in my mouth, no plate.
Of course, that's totally you.
Yeah, and walking around, and I was like, oh, the furniture. I need to put a table beside the chair so I can put all this stuff down. But I had this other like TV tray table where the computer was sitting on that. So I was like, okay, the computer's there. I'll just put my drink there, and I'll go put something in the kit, and then moving stuff around. And I pick up a table to swing it around, and I swung it around, and the drink poured all over the computer. Yeah, my brand new laptop. And thank God it was shut, so nothing got, but the drink went everywhere.
Oh, Jesus.
And I'm like, I just want to watch a movie. I don't want to clean up. And just everything was everywhere. And I was so upset. And then I was like, oh my God, it was one of those, it was a near beer. And so I was like, oh, this isn't like a glass of water. This could potentially stain. So I'm trying to blot things up and dry off the computer. Pizza is still dangling out of my mouth. It was just a hot mess. Anyway, I was finally able to sit down and watch.
Near beer, near miss.
Yeah. So, it's funny. And I finally got sat down, and things were dried off and settled. And I had a little laugh to myself because, I love Batman. And I love James Bond movies. And I watch these movies about these heroes, like Tony Stark is always cool. And Spider-Man, even though he's a bit nerdy and awkward, he's still pretty cool. And Captain America is super awesome all the time. And like, I'm trying to emulate these guys, and I talk about these guys, and I think about them all the time. And I'm still fucking knocking things over with
pizza in your mouth.
Yeah. And I just swore, so I owe $1 to the pizza jar for whenever we get together. But yeah, that's my funny story. And then as I was sitting down, I pressed play for Ultron, and the very next thing I did was text you. So ... And then I put it down, watch the movie.
Nice. And that was last night. And as I was watching WandaVision, I don't know, maybe I'll keep doing this, but like as I'm watching it, I'm usually throwing stuff up into the merge.
Nerds?
Yeah. So, and I didn't know if you were like still awake or what you were doing. I think I remember you telling me that you were going to watch Age of Ultron, but I didn't want to like bother you. My phone also like goes to sleep as well, like after a certain time. So
Nice.
I wasn't getting notifications. No matter what, I did throw a few things up on there, and when I watched that first episode where everybody was coming back after the blip,
Spoiler alert.
oh geez, spoiler alert! I mean, that really got me excited. I was like, this is so great! Like just pulling in continuity from everywhere with WandaVision, and it just feels great.
So okay, let's talk about WandaVision right now then. This recent episode, because this episode is episode 4, and it's so different from the first 3 episodes. I mean, right away we're not in a sitcom.
No, it's like reality.
It was a mini Marvel movie.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, you're totally right. It was totally a mini Marvel movie. And I think somebody on the chat was saying that it felt like it was longer than it was.
Mm-hmm.
And then after I watched it, or did, excuse me, and then after I watched it, I was like, that could have been 90 minutes long. Like, that should have just kept on going. Like, I wanted more, so.
I found myself towards the end of it being like, oh, please be longer. Just please be longer. Like, I know we're wrapping up right now, but please be longer.
So yeah, no, I guess so. Are we allowed to go on about spoiler stuff?
Yeah, go ahead. We've already made the warning.
You made the warning after I did a spoiler.
Yeah.
It was interesting to finally get to see some secrets revealed, right? So now we know who was the voice trying to get a hold of Wanda, and it was
on the radio. Yeah, it was Jimmy Woo. Yeah,
Jimmy Woo, right?
Yeah.
And now
I love that character too.
He's great, right?
Yeah. Was it? Is it Ant-Man where he comes in first, or the second Ant-Man? He's so great at being funny and deadpan serious.
Yeah,
he's just great.
No, he's good.
Yeah.
And then I always forget this character's name, but she was in Thor.
Right. Oh shoot, Tanya and I were just talking about that.
I can see the name.
Kat Denning, Darcy.
Darcy, thank you very much.
Yeah, so, I totally just paused the video and looked it up at IMDb. Darcy, played by Kat Denning. But I like that they use her. I like that they're like with her and Jimmy, they're taking kind of these, I don't want to call them B characters in the MCU, but they're not heroes. But they do for what we call them fifth business in Canadian literature. Or literature. But definitely great to use those characters who are established. The beauty of the MCU is that they've got this decade and a bit of establishing characters, and so you've got a deep bench. So call in the third stringers and give them stuff to do, and it was kind of nice to see that.
And I think it's just a testament to the direction, and just the story writing, because that's the thing, and the way that they understand their audience, because that's the stuff that gets us excited, right? Like, oh my god, they brought back that character.
Yeah,
really? Like, oh man, because that character was doing this. Does that mean this is going to happen next? Like, and maybe it will. Like they're really pulling all the different strings together, I guess you could say.
When you've got 10 plus years of world building, you can do that. You can. There's so many great characters, and it's funny because I was watching Ultron, and and when Sam Jackson brings in the shield hover carrier at the end to save the people from Sokovia when the island starts to rise up, and he's like, yeah, I brought some friends, and there was a guy, like one of the technicians who presses the buttons, and you like very forgettable 3 lines in the movie, but it's the same guy who in the previous in Captain America Winter Soldier, when you found out that the agents of a lot of the Shield guys were actually Hydra secret agents.
Yeah.
And he's got the gun to the back of the guy's head. He's like, you launched those things early. And this guy was like, I'm not going to do that. They use the same character over and over, same character again, a few movies later. I just love that. I love that. If you've been in a Marvel movie, you should still be sitting, by your phone being like, I wonder if I'm going to be in the next, I wonder if I'm going to be in Falcon and Winter Soldier. Anyway, that was a great part of WandaVision, I think, just using all these characters. Geraldine, we find out that she's, well, I think a lot of people knew, especially the nerds knew, but she in Captain Marvel was Claire Danvers' best friend's daughter.
Yeah, that's right. I feel like I should have known that too, because as soon as we figure that out, like it's like, oh my god, of course.
But we're new to the Marvel world. Again, if like I always go back to, if this was Gotham City and you're like, oh, her name's Carrie Kelly, I'd be like, oh my god, she ends up being a Robin. But in this, because like we've got these kind of fresh eyes. We're not deep Marvel nerds.
No, it's true, but oh man, the love is there because it's so much fun.
So good. It's so good. So what else did you think about this episode?
I enjoyed the episode because it was a little bit different. Well, a bit different, I guess you could say. As you said, it just totally spun on a dime, completely from the three previous ones. I enjoyed it for that, but I also really, really just want to watch WandaVision too. You know, I want to see how that's unraveling. And I think, as I said before, maybe one of the other episodes, I enjoy, like a dreamscape kind of a type of storytelling or that kind of a thing in movies.
Yep.
You know, that was WandaVision for like those first three episodes. It's like, what is reality here, right? And then this fourth episode, it was just reality in that world. Right. And that was cool. But I really, like, just for me, because like that's really what I love. Those are my favorite kinds of movies. I want to get back to that because like it's like eating candy.
I think the interesting thing about this episode, and it's funny again because when I watched it with Tanya, she turned to me and she's like, "Isn't that funny? We waited a week to watch something, and then the episode finishes, and we're in the exact same spot we were last week, timeline wise, right?" I'm like, I did not. I mean, I did think about that, but it did not go unnoticed with me. But yes, but still, so much happened. It's one of the very first binge-worthy shows was Lost.
Oh yes, yeah.
Right? But the thing with Lost, and Lost me by the end of season 2, because they would just, every episode was, we're going to introduce 15 questions and we'll answer 1 or 2 from the previous episodes that we built. So you'd have this mountain of questions, but they would trickle in answers here and there, where I think the beauty of this is you've got 3 episodes of lots of questions and then 1 episode with lots of answers, which is absolutely fantastic, especially when you're binging something and you, because we're not binging it, we're still waiting for a week. Whenever you're having to do that, at least you've got the satisfaction of, okay, we're in the same spot, but now we know more.
That's a really good point. When that guy was setting up into that hazmat suit and he was going into the sewers, immediately it was like, that's the beekeeper guy, you know, and he's the guy that comes up, and as soon as he crossed through Wanda's
threshold,
that threshold that she's created, he totally turned to the beekeeper guy. And maybe that was obvious like as it was happening, but like again, that was another thing that gets you excited as you're watching the episode, you know. The helicopter too, right? And the helicopter that
Monica Rambeau.
Yeah, okay, that's right. Yeah. So when Monica Rambeau sent in that helicopter, and it, you know, as she was getting it set up, I was wondering, is that going to be the helicopter that Wanda finds? And
I never had any doubt that was the helicopter.
Right, yeah, right. I guess it was just so neat to see that, like, you know, get set up and get sent in, and just so much fun. I loved it.
And, you know, they do such a good job with, or maybe it's because they've given you all these answers and you're like, yes, win. And then they're like, when Darcy's like, oh, I'm getting a signal, get me a TV, a really old TV. And then like, oh, because I need a television to get inside Wanda's head that she's created, because she's broadcasting her delusions. But she, like, to really get this into a clear picture, I'm going to need a tube TV because why not?
Yeah, it makes sense. I was like, of course you would need an old TV. Of course you need a tube TV for that. Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah, so I mean, it sets up everything or just continues on with everything. I thought it was great.
So can I ask you a couple questions here?
Yeah.
So, like I said before previously, a lot of the times when I watch these things, after I watch it, I like to go online or into YouTube and I watch videos about Easter eggs and things. And I caught somebody had made a video for the next Wanda that's coming up. I guess they did they got a hold of whatever trailer is out.
Okay.
And so I started watching that, and I immediately stopped because I don't want to know. Like I just want to go into it fresh as much as possible.
Yeah.
But that aside, where do you think we're going next?
I don't know. I think it's ultimately we're going to. Uh, well, I think we're setting up Phase 4, Marvel's Phase 4.
Sure.
They're introducing the multiverse, and Wanda's power.
I mean, mostly just the next episode of Wanda.
Oh gosh, I wouldn't even begin to venture to get again because my knowledge of the MCU is so new, if you will. I wouldn't even begin to venture, and it's really it's what I love so much about being a new Marvel fan is going into all of this with fresh eyes. It's again, I've got so much baggage when it comes to Batman, like personal baggage, and you know, like I've talked before about like lying awake and really wondering about my version of the Batcave. And
You got a large utility belt.
oh my god, you bat caves, utility belts, suits, Gotham City, the United States. Like I've got my in-depth thinking of like I have a whole idea of what the United States, how it's structured, like as a country. You know what I mean? But with Marvel, I'm just a fan. Like, and I'll go and I'll look at those YouTube videos like you will, and I'll read fan sites, and you know I've got my own nerd fan page, and I want to hear people's opinions. But mostly, I'm just really enjoying seeing all this fresh. It's a real joy. It's a real pleasure
for me as well. Maybe that's one of the reasons why I've been enjoying it so much. Is because it's still all fairly fresh. Like I was more of an X-Men kid, and never really paid attention to the event.
That's a good point. Like you ask, and I bring up. I think they're going to Phase 4. Like this again. Like I said, I don't know what they're going to do with the next episode, but I think what the point of the show is them introducing Phase 4. And ultimately, my theory would be, with my limited knowledge of the Marvel Universe, it would be now that Disney owns X-Men, getting them in there because Wanda has a direct connection to X-Men because in the comics, her father is Magneto.
So, and then this brings up, we had a conversation earlier about how I thought in that when you first see Wanda and Pietro Quicksilver,
classic joke.
Yeah. You know, you see them in those cages, and I remembered it being that they had left it open for interpretation whether they were mutants or not. But you reminded me that no, was it Age of Ultron?
In Ultron, they full on state that it was experiments, kind of like Steve Rogers was experimented on, and they volunteered for it. And that was a plot point. They volunteered because bad stuff had happened to them. Their city was bombed, and they were stuck in a house with an blown up Stark missile for like 48 hours, and they were just sitting there looking at this missile, and all it said was Stark on the side, and they were just waiting for it to blow up. And they've got this deep rooted hate for Stark.
So when you say, because the supposed father of these two is Magneto, right? And do you think they're going to renege on the super soldier serum that they were given in some way? Are they going to try and write that out somehow? And you're like, they were mutants all along.
I don't know. I'm sure it's a problem that they've got a team of writers working on.
Like around the clock.
But Marvel does that stuff so well.
Yeah.
You know, they deal with it. And, you know, they are so devoted and they cherish the source material, but they're not married to it. You know, they're able to make their changes. So I don't know who's to say. I'm excited to see what happens next. I'll tell you that right now.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. And again, I want to see mutants in the sphere. I want to see all the mutants coming back.
I think you will, because now that Disney owns X-Men and Fantastic Four, I think it's just going to be a matter of time before they swallow all of that the universe. So, and God, I mean, could you imagine watching the first Iron Man? Like when I saw the first Iron Man in the cinema, I never thought that they were going to build this into what it is. So, I mean, it's exciting. And at what point do audiences go, okay, I've had enough. I've had enough of this. But if you keep on giving such original material like WandaVision, I think the audiences are going to keep coming. There are millions of, if not, I wonder if there's a billion nerds out there. There's 7 billion people on the planet. I think there's a billion nerds.
I think that's pretty safe to say.
With 1/7 of the planet is nerds.
I bet there's a nerd out there that could answer that question for you.
Probably. And if you are that nerd, I'd like to hear from you.
Yes, please. We would both like to hear that.
In the meantime, this is probably a great place for us to end off with our hopefulness for the next episode of WandaVision.
Oh,
talk good. Did you know I talk good?
He's the king of the segue.
I talk good. Yeah, this is it. Boy, oh boy. All right. Well, we'll talk to you all next time on the next episode of Mirrors Nerds, where Dan and I will talk about nerdy things, maybe with a guest.
Hopefully with a guest.
We hope to hear from you or see you. Not see you. Goodbye.
All right. Good night, everybody. Thank you.
Good night, everybody.